The man on her stoop wore khaki pants and a white shirt, his hair combed neatly back from his forehead and temples. He had gentle eyes, a wide smile, and an air of confidence in his stance that made Juliette automatically step back and open her door wider. She caught herself before inviting him in, realizing her immediate sense of comfort was due to his uncanny likeness to Mike. What was Renata thinking? She glanced down at the phone in her hand. Speak of the devil, Renata. She shoved it back into her bag. She'd deal with her sister later. I'm Paul Rudyard, as in Rudyard Kipling. I'm Juliette, as in Juliette Capulet. She could think of no other renowned Juliettes on the spot, but spelled differently. She stuck out her hand. Nice to meet you. The man shook her hand, then offered her the bouquet of mixed wildflowers he'd brought. And these are for you. Thank you. They're beautiful. He let his fingertips drift over the back of her hand as she took them. She couldn't help but think of Mike's last visit, and tensed, prepared for flight. Juliette. What a lovely name. Very romantic. Maybe I should change my name to Romeo. He chuckled, and Juliette smiled politely, taking a step back. This was all so awkward. She was having a hard time remembering why she had agreed to the ManDates at all. Oh, I think Paul suits you, she said, trying desperately to steer the conversation away from romantic notions. Besides, if we were that Romeo and Juliet, this night would be ending very badly for both of us. There was an awkward silence that lasted way too long, and the uncomprehending look on Paul's face compelled her to explain. You know, we'd have to kill each other. I mean, ourselves. We'd both have to commit suicide. But first I'd have to take a poison that made it look like I was dead, and then you'd kill yourself rather than living without me, and then I'd come around and find you dead, and then I'd have to kill myself for making you kill yourself. Not a good first date. In her head, Gia chirped, "Cricket, cricket." You haven't read Shakespeare, she stated. Oh, yes, Shakespeare, of course. Paul nodded, then he smiled, recovering his composure. Your sister did tell me you were a little depressed. He winked, and his smile broadened. But I have a much better plan for this evening than a double suicide. She told you what? Juliette stiffened. Renata really was the devil. It's all right. He reached over and patted her shoulder. She thought I should know that you were feeling a little down, that's all. His placating tone was beginning to make her skin crawl. Well, I'm here to change the way you feel. I'm going to take you out and wine and dine you until you can feel nothing but happy. Juliette reached for the handle of the door, and Paul mistook her intentions. Are you all ready to come outside and play? Oh, dear, she murmured, looking down at her toes, poking their little blue tips out at her. Oh, dear, she repeated, shaking her head. Bold and daring, Jules. He's already got the stupid thing down. What is it? Paul asked, hunkering down a little in order to see her face. Finally, she looked up at him. I can't, Paul. I can't go out and play. I'm sorry if you were misled about me. I'm afraid you and I have very different expectations about this evening. Oh, I see. He nodded sagely. Then he shook his head. No, I don't see. That's why I'm here, to change your expectations. Paul's confidence didn't seem to waver at all. Juliette took a deep breath and blew it out slowly before she replied, setting the blossoms in her hand, fluttering their petals encouragingly. She chose her words carefully, but kept them firm. Paul, I was under the impression this was a blind date, not therapy. I don't mean to be rude, but I don't think this is such a good idea after all. I'm sorry. I'm going to say goodnight now. She stepped back and began to push the door closed. No, wait. Paul put a hand up to block it, just like Mike had done, and Juliette felt panic swirl in her belly. The look on Paul's face, however, was not angry, just a bit desperate. Don't do this, Juliette. I promised your sister I'd... You shouldn't be making promises about me to my sister.